So as this title says, I believe that 93% of the top 250 MSSPs in the world right now are still relying upon ineffective and outdated sales strategies. And typically, these are the sales strategies that the sales leaders and the marketing leaders learned when they came up in marketing and sales in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. They've not upgraded their sales and marketing process for the digital transformation that is occurring in 2022 and beyond. And this is a big problem. The real issue, in my opinion, is this. If your sales strategy right now is relying upon the traditional ways of growing an MSSP, which is like trade shows, which provide pretty decent opportunities, but it's really expensive. And it's really not controllable. You can't go to 3 times as many trade shows next week or next month. Cold calling, right? If you are in your team or you're outsourcing this to some BDR agency, cold calling is getting harder to book meetings, and the quality of those meetings is consistently getting lower and lower just because of the way that buying is changing. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. It's really a low value, low authority, low leverage entry point to building a relationship and making a sale. That's why many MSSPs don't see any ROI from it. Lead lists, lead generation, channel partners. So lead list and lead generation, they're inefficient and ineffective. Channel partners, I guess I don't want to crap on all of this stuff, right? Because they do work. Obviously, the majority of the industry is driven using these techniques right now. So to say they're outdated is true and untrue at the same time. What I'm trying to convey to you, though, is many MSSPs are not paying attention to the wave of digital transformation within marketing and sales, and that is within social selling. There's a massive opportunity in that only maybe 7% of MSSPs that exist of the top 250 are actually paying attention to this, and even fewer are executing it correctly. So what I'm going to give to you in this video is a social selling system specifically for your MSSP. You're going to want to pause this and grab a pen and pad, and also probably pass this off to your chief revenue officer, your VP of sales, your chief marketing officer, maybe even your board, to help them to understand the revolution that's happening in terms of social selling. Okay, many people don't really understand the gravity of social selling. They believe that it's a fad. They believe that it is like every other channel that's available to them. And this couldn't be further from the truth. And I'm going to demonstrate that to you over the next 15 minutes or so, or really however long it takes in order to detail this, to dive into a specific strategy that we have created to help you to grow your MSSP by adding 2 additional managed security clients every single month like clockwork using a social selling system that we've created. So this isn't going to be theory. I'm going to concretely strategize an exact social selling pipeline, show you the numbers every step along the way of what that should look like, and even show you at a high level the strategic direction that you need to take in order to be able to accomplish this. So let's go ahead and get into it. So how can social selling help to grow your MSSP? I want to put this down into dollars and cents so you really can latch on to the opportunity that I'm talking about. So what we're talking about again is as a pipeline and a channel that can, in 2023 or beyond, help you to add at bare minimum 2 additional new clients, managed security clients on a monthly basis. So we're talking about 24 additional clients in 2023, right? So that can really help you to exceed your growth and revenue goals. If you're private equity backed, that can help you to really to create a strategy that can exceed the numbers and the expectations that have probably been placed upon you. So what does 2 new clients or 24 total clients in 2023 mean for your MSSP? We're talking about an additional $1.4 million or $1,440,000 to be specific in new annual recurring revenue in 2023 from just social selling alone. Okay, and that's doing the math of the average deal size being $60,000 per year. So again, that will multiply depending upon the contract value. So that could even triple depending if you're signing 3-year contracts. And you can do that math. That's about $4.2 million within 3 years from this social selling pipeline alone in annual recurring revenue. So in terms of valuation, just from that $1.44 million in new ARR, we're talking about an additional $14 million in equity value for your company. Social selling can also help you to go after and to more easily attract larger deals, right? So that's oftentimes one of the biggest multipliers for an MSSP is specifically going after larger contract sizes. So we're talking about medium-sized companies and maybe small enterprises even, depending upon if you have the capacity for that. The next reason why social selling is so important is customer acquisition cost. So as I'm about to explain to you a little bit later, social selling is a new form of digital transformation. And just like all digital transformation, it's about increasing your effectiveness with less resources. Okay, so social selling can help you to lower your customer or client acquisition costs down to a ridiculously low, about $270 to $350, or at the upper range, $430 per new client acquired, right? So we're talking about the range of $200 to $500 being a cost to acquire a customer that's going to pay you $5,000 per month for as long as you can maintain and add value to that relationship. So it's like having a money printing machine for your business. And also another thing that a social selling system can help you to do is to build your relationships and seed value in your relationships in a way that can help you to secure longer term contracts more easily, right? So instead of signing 1 year opportunities, you're signing consistently 2 to 3 year opportunities. And just think about that, right? We're talking about $200 to $300 to acquire a contract that's worth $300,000, $500,000 over the lifetime. All right. So hopefully that gets you to wrap your mind around this opportunity that we're talking about. This isn't a small opportunity. This is the channel of the future. This is not an additional channel. This is the channel. In the same way that Amazon has reinvented retail and commerce, social selling is redefining the rules for marketing and sales. So hopefully this helps you to understand that. So what resources do you need in order to set up a working social selling system? So I'm going to show you our particular social selling system, and this is specifically designed for MSSPs, but it's going to take you about 14 to 18 days to set up. We are typically generating clients meetings within the first 19 to 25 days. So the first meetings will be coming through within 19 to 25 days. And the first client will be coming in between 47 to 70 days, depending upon the deal size and some other factors that are in that sort of pipeline. The next thing that's required is profiles. So typically what's going to be required is buy-in from your current team, your sales team, whether those are BDRs or account executives. You're going to need access to their profile. You're going to need them to sort of buy in and see the vision of this and how it's going to help them to create more income for themselves and more opportunity for themselves. So you need buy-in from your team. And in terms of price, on average, it's going to cost you typically, it's about $935 per business development representative on your team, or per profile. In order to generate those numbers, it's going to cost you $935 per month on average, and that's to generate 2 deals, 14 meetings, and 120 leads per month. Okay, so let me reiterate that because I know that was a little bit jumbled. So the average cost is about $935 per profile in order to create this opportunity, and that's in order to generate 2 deals, 14 highly qualified meetings, and over 120 leads per month. Okay, so that's the cost of this process. So let me dive into this. All right, so before I dive into the actual strategy and showing you the details of how this works, the root of the problem is really, really quite simple. And it's a matter of time. Typically, it takes about 7 hours to build enough trust, enough authority, enough of a relationship with a prospect in order to turn them into a paying client. So 7 hours of relationship building, of trust building, of them thinking about your organization or reviewing your marketing materials or meeting with you one-on-one, face-to-face. It takes about 7 hours in order for the relationship to be advanced enough for a deal to get done. The problem for most MSSPs is that they're trying to do this using one-on-one time and effort. One-on-one meaning one-on-one meetings, right, via, let's say, Zoom, in-person meetings, or phone calls or something like that. They're trying to get an entire 7-hour sales cycle condensed via one-on-one time and energy. And this is a massive bottleneck to growth. And this is really the main problem that social selling solves. It allows you to build trust, it allows you to educate and build authority without involving the one-on-one time of your sales team. So it unlocks massive levels of new results, of efficiencies, of generating those results as well. So not only can you generate more results with a smaller team and smaller resources, but you can do it for less cost. And that's how you can generate the ridiculously low acquisition costs that I just showed you on the previous slide of around $200, $400. It's because of the leverage that's provided through social selling. And quite frankly, most MSSPs are not paying attention to this. So the bottleneck in your current process is that because you're relying upon these trade shows, upon cold calling, upon referrals and word of mouth and channel partners, your BDRs don't really have a system that they can use in order to on demand get meetings and make them quality, right? They're forced to waste their time trying to cold call, or they're forced to waste their time in the process of trying to generate meetings. That's number one. The second piece is, even when your team is able to generate meetings through these referrals or through trade shows, the problem is it becomes like a traffic jam within your sales process, because your sales team is really forced to drag all of these prospects one-on-one and individually through your sales process via meetings, hand-holding, calls. And in order to get those 7 hours in, it takes a lot of time and effort and energy, because people don't show up to sales meetings sometimes. Things come up. There are multiple decision makers involved that all need to be educated, and it creates massive amounts of complexity within a deal and ends up creating problems for you. As I'll show you the implication of that in a second. The third and final thing, the reason why, again, it sounds kind of harsh, but your sales process is stuck in 1985. The third issue is that it becomes really hard in order to scale this up. Right? It's really, really expensive, and it adds massive overhead to your customer acquisition costs. It's a drag on your cash flow because you have to recruit, you have to hire, you have to train, manage, tool, and retain a team of BDRs. It's like herding cats. It's a very difficult job. It's a job that really no person wants to do. Even seasoned salespeople, their goal is pretty quickly to move out of this role and into a different role, and it becomes very hard to keep this function going and to continue to get consistent, optimal, and growing performance out of your sales team. So that's the third bottleneck, and the consequences are pretty severe. Because of this outdated process, it makes it take a lot longer for you to get deals done. And typically that's 2 to even 5 times longer. So if you're looking at a 90-day sales cycle on average right now for most of your managed security deals to get done, that's a symptom of an outdated sales process. Again, overhead. It costs a lot to be able to provide insurance and all of these things for a team of BDRs. Recruiting, hiring, training, tooling, staffing. All of these small things add up, and they end up influencing the cost to acquire a customer. Right? Because you have this massive overhead, because you have all of these people on your payroll that don't necessarily perform in the way that they could if they were using a better process, it takes a lot more for you to generate new clients. For many MSSPs, we're talking about thousands, in some cases even tens of thousands of dollars. So if it costs you, if you don't even know what your customer or client acquisition cost is right now, that's a sign, right? And if it's not $400 or $500 or lower, then that's a symptom that your sales process is outdated. This also creates problems within profitability because it costs you so much to acquire a client that eats away at your margin. And growth, right? Growth requires cash. And if your process for acquiring new clients eats your cash and your business's cash, unless you have deep pockets with investors with tens and tens of millions of dollars to burn through, even if you did have that, just having a more effective way of using your cash means that you can grow further and faster with less energy and less resources, right? That's very, very important, right? So that's the consequences of an outdated sales process. So what I'm going to dive into right now is a different way to do that, and how to accomplish the numbers that we were talking about earlier. That's consistently low customer acquisition costs, 2 new clients on a monthly basis, over the next year, as well as all the other things that we're talking about. Less investment of time and resources in order to generate that. So in order for you to wrap your mind around this new process, this new way of doing things, and again, I keep describing social selling as digital transformation for marketing and sales leaders. This is not a fad, right? But many business owners are turned off because they've received selling from poor salespeople, social selling, via spam and negative forms of outreach, but they don't really understand that there's a different way to go about this. I'm going to show you that in a second. But what I need you to start thinking about, or to transform your paradigm, I want to help you to start thinking about your sales process and your process of acquiring new clients, new managed security clients, as kind of like a game of golf. Okay, so we all know that there are two parts to a game of golf. There's your long game, which includes placing the ball on the tee, taking out your driver, covering a lot of distance with that driver to try to get the ball closest to the hole as you possibly can with as few strokes as possible. And then you have your short game, which involves that once the ball is on the green, you want to use your putter to get that ball in the hole. The problem is that your sales process, your outdated sales process, is heavily reliant upon sales, right? Again, it takes a lot of one-on-one time, effort, and energy in order to pull prospects through your sales process. And that's kind of like trying to play a game of golf with only a putter. You're missing out. If you tried to hit the ball off the tee using only just a putter, you're missing out on the leverage of a tool like a driver or an iron that allows you to cover more distance with less energy. So that's what we're talking about. Social selling and the rise of social selling is about transforming your salespeople more into full stack salespeople. So that includes adding marketing into their sales process, content creation, value creation through leverage. And that's what this process is about. So you wouldn't play a game of golf with only a putter. You shouldn't try to generate revenue with only your sales team, right? So the difference is, what you have to stop doing basically is stop trying to generate those 7 hours of relationship building with only one-on-one sales time, and create a new way in order to create trust, leverage, add value via leveraged video and content, just like what you're watching right now, to help transform people's paradigms, to teach, right? Like Challenger Sale mentioned, to teach them, to change their paradigm and perspective, to make them aware of new ways of doing things, to tailor, to be specific about their business and their particular opportunities, to sell to all of the different types of decision makers that may be involved in a sale, and to take control, right? So this is what this process is about. It gives you more deals with faster sales velocity, with less effort, less strokes, and less overhead. That's what this is about. This is what we call this is our MSSP growth machine. There are two parts of our growth machine. There's a paid form, and I'm going to show you the organic or the outreach method in terms of social selling for MSSPs. So understand that there are two parts. I'll show you guys the next part at some other time. Excuse me. So what's the value of this form of social selling via direct outreach through channels like LinkedIn? The value is that by the time someone shows up to a one-on-one meeting with you, the vast majority of the selling is already done. This is massively impactful for your sales team, right? So before a one-on-one meeting is held with your sales team, much of the selling has already been done because they've seen and consumed different types of content that are designed to handle the most common objections, that are designed to sort of create a gap in terms of helping this person to understand the potential holes that they might have in their security posture, for them to be feeling the pain of a potential breach or an incident because they've heard stories of other companies of similar sizes within their industry who didn't take security seriously and faced the consequences. They will thoroughly understand, for example, the ROI of their services, right? So if they wanted to do this in-house, or if they just wanted to, let's say, screw it and not, we've got cyber insurance, we don't really need any of this in this stuff. Help them to understand the consequences of that. So they've already seen content that's designed to systematically change their belief systems and align them with the necessary belief systems and paradigms that will enable them more easily to buy your cybersecurity service, right? For example, your USP, content that helps them to understand what makes you unique, what makes you different. What about your people, process, and your technology are better than the other competitors out there? This helps to establish trust, and it makes the sales cycle a lot more fluid because your sales team doesn't have to communicate these different things one-on-one via sales meetings. They can communicate these things via content, via leverage, via information that is distributed across multiple channels, and that's distribution is sort of more automated and more leveraged. Not automated in the sense of spam, but automated in the sense of distribution, okay, as I'll explain about a little bit later. So this creates momentum within your sales process that you can't achieve trying to do things the old way. So this is sort of an example of one type of social selling, and that's on LinkedIn. You might be watching this on LinkedIn right now. So these are a snapshot of the different industries that are available in terms of cybersecurity, right? What are the verticals that are available in LinkedIn? On the left here, you see headcount of the organization. So we're looking at small to medium-sized organizations, or maybe you could consider these small enterprises as well. But from about 50 to 1,000 employees, how many decision makers? So these are CEOs, presidents, founders within these industries. So in North America alone, in Canada and the US, there are over 170,000 financial services CEOs, founders, presidents, essentially senior decision makers. 60,000 hospital and healthcare decision makers, 150,000 manufacturing decision makers. These are people that your salespeople could be reaching out to, not in a spammy, low-value way, but in a trust-building, authority-conveying way in which pretty instantly the CEO of the exact type of company that would be perfect for your managed security service could get a notification on their phone and be brought into a sales process in which they could be educated and be indoctrinated essentially into a sales process that can help them to build trust, answer the most common questions that they might have about security, create those gaps that we just talked about, establish why you guys are the very best of the best. And this could be happening fluidly and easily. So there's massive opportunity in order to do this online, way more so than a trade show or any other opportunity that might be out there, right? So this next slide is about showing you the process of social selling itself. So these are the map out of the stages, and on the top you can see sort of the KPIs that you can expect at each stage and how they work. So from left, meaning cold audience, to right, a deal closed, and mapping out every single step in between and the ways in which we optimize each step in between and the numbers that you should expect. Okay, so I'll start to read them out from left to right so that you can understand. The first is a specific sales navigator audience, vertical specific. So one of the biggest mistakes that MSSPs make is trying to attack every single vertical as if it's the same, right? They're speaking to healthcare CEOs or financial services CEOs or manufacturing CEOs in the same exact way. Their profile does not help them. Their profile is not positioned for any one particular industry above another. The problem with this is that the CEO of a manufacturing company has very different challenges than the CEO of a financial services company or a healthcare CEO. And if you're not communicating to those needs, to those standards, those expectations, you're not using their language, you don't demonstrate that you're an authority on their particular business type, they're not going to respond. And that's where typically a lot of companies are falling flat within their social selling. So the next step is, once you actually have an audience, is a vertical specific, high authority, engaging LinkedIn profile. Okay, so the purpose of this is to be very specifically tailored to, let's say, manufacturing or financial services specifically, and not broadly positioned, so that you're communicating in the language that they understand and everything else, and communicating and giving value in the way that they can receive in a way that's valuable for them. The next step is a personalized authority position connection request message. So this is not a spammy, generic, low value connection request message. This is sort of the bottleneck along this process. So again, there are over 180,000 North American manufacturing CEOs. On LinkedIn, you can add over 400 people to your network per month. So a representative of your team should be sending at least 400 requests on a monthly basis to different CEOs of different verticals. And that request message needs to be personalized. It needs to reach out to them in a way that shows that this is not just some robot sending out this message, that this person is actually interested in me, has done their research, understands what I'm doing, and can help me, right? In a personal way. The next stage is CEO accepted. So you can send 400 requests per month. Typically on the high end, if done right, you see 32% of those requests being accepted into the network. So that means if done right, if the message is personalized, authority positioned, you'll be getting over 120 new CEOs introduced into your network on a monthly basis. So the price in terms of running this process, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but you can be expecting to add about 120 new CEOs to your network every single month. So these are CEOs that are raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in what you have to sell. Feel free to DM me. Feel free to post something in your feed. I'll be sure to read it if I find it informative. This is sort of someone raising their hand and saying that, hey, I want to be engaged in a sales process. Please help me. Please educate me. Please give me more value because I'm interested in what you have to discuss. The next stage in this process is really engagement. It's adding value. It's giving gifts. It's basically about adding value above and beyond your competition in terms of educating them about their particular business and maybe the unique challenges in terms of securing their type of data or their type of organization or the type of compliance that they need to be focused on, particularly the government regulations within their industry. And it's adding that value in a multitude of different ways. So typically this is through pre-created content. This is through direct messaging and asking questions that elicit and help them to understand that there are gaps in their posture. And this is them seeing and distributing content through LinkedIn. And what this leads to is meetings, right? So if done right, you can generate between 12 to 18% of the CEOs who accept you in your network on a monthly basis can be converted into a qualified book phone appointment. So that means someone who's already seen and interacted with your profile, have seen the content that you've created, have engaged with you, maybe through liking or commenting posts on your sales reps' profiles. So they already have done all the selling, or the majority of the selling typically is done before someone's raising their hand and committing to a meeting. And we set off a process to make sure that they're educated and sort of indoctrinated into your way of thinking before this appointment shows up. So this is 14 to 21 appointments per month. And next, this matriculates into about 15% of those appointments are converted into deals. And so this also involves another way of follow-up via social selling. So typically for deals to close, obviously there are multiple decision makers within the process typically. So the point of social selling and leveraging content and value is to be able to distribute the same asset, which is your content, across those leverage points to help accelerate and get the people who need to be involved the right information that they need in order to feel confident about a decision, and to allow that to happen at a time that's convenient for them, and to consistently follow up via email, via retargeting advertising, via maybe or LinkedIn outreach to condense the time that it takes for a deal to get done, and to also increase the number of deals that are able to be done based upon the number of leads and meetings that you do get, right? So from that, we find that typically it's about 15% depending upon the skill set of your sales team. It could be up to 20%, maybe even higher, depending on if you have really good, a really good, well-trained sales team and they follow up well. That's typically 2 to 4 deals closed per month. Okay, and you see some of the prices here on the bottom of these individual squares. So you see a $6.67 cost per lead. You might already know that the average cost per lead within the cybersecurity industry is typically at least $25, but on average maybe $50 to $100 per lead, not per phone appointment, but per lead, right? And the reason that we're able to get leads at this price is because we have a team based out of the Philippines of highly trained virtual assistants within this process. And because of the arbitrage of cost per living, we get super intelligent people, college educated, fluent in English, to work the system and the process, right? They're not doing the selling themselves, but they're distributing the content that we've created and sort of posting, interacting in some ways and booking these meetings. That's how we're able to generate such low cost per acquisition. That's how we're able to get $6.67 cost per leads and $38 to $57 costs per pre-qualified booked appointment and $200 to $400 costs per client acquisition, right? Is because we take this process and make sure that your sales team doesn't have an additional 2 to 3 hours of work tacked on to their day. And also because it's expensive to hire a US-based sales team. And this is quite frankly not the highest order of business for them in terms of creating leverage and value. It's really fielding these meetings and these appointments and talking one-on-one once someone is already sold, once someone already has a baseline and understanding. It's closing deals and doing only those things that are necessary and sort of outsourcing all those other tasks to someone who is a little bit more effective and efficient with those processes. So you don't burn your sales team out, and so that they're able to focus on things that are more important and to lower your costs as well. So it's really, really important. So that's a snapshot of the social selling process, right? That's how we're able to generate 2 to 4 deals per month via this social selling pipeline and do it at a cost that's exponentially lower than what you're doing right now. We're talking $200 to $400 cost per client acquisition. And this is just for one profile. This is just for one sales rep, right? We can multiply this across, the 2, 3, 4 sales reps that you have within your organization. And depending upon your deal size, the numbers might be changing slightly, but it's not by much, right? So if you're going after enterprises, these numbers might be a little bit higher, but not significantly higher, right? We're not talking about 5 times higher. We're talking about maybe 50% higher in terms of the cost per acquisition in some of these numbers that we're mentioning right here. But yeah, next slide. So this is sort of an outline of the investment, right? I could have showed you the live spreadsheet itself, but at the top line here, you see the starting cash flow. And this is outlining the costs that you will incur for the setup of this exact system that I've outlined within the last slide and all of the numbers that we have detailed within that last slide. And this is sort of run against an average contract size and some numbers that I've assumed. But I'll sort of outline them for you right here in a quick second. So it typically costs between $800 to $900 for you to hire one of our virtual assistants that are trained within this process to work a LinkedIn profile for your sales team. They're able to send out 20 connection requests every single weekday. Again, the number of VAs is 1. 30% of those connection requests across the month are going to be accepted. So that filters down to 120 new leads or CEOs added to their network on a monthly basis. The acceptance percentage, so meaning the number of CEOs who accepted their connection request turning into meetings, is 12% on average. That can be higher depending upon the quality of the follow-up. So that's about 14 meetings per month for one of these virtual assistants. The closing percentage of your sales rep is listed right here at 10%, so that's pretty low. So that's an average of 1 client generated per month, and the average acquisition cost is $556 to acquire those customers. If you're doing a low contract size, in this case it's $4,000 per month, and about $60,000 per year in contract size. I think that number is a little bit off. It should be $5,000. I'm not sure why that is changed. But this is the math. Basically, if your average contract length is just 1 year through this process, you can expect total revenue booked on a monthly basis to be about $100,000. If your setup fee is $9,000, so this trickles down to add that math. So if you want the spreadsheet, I don't want to go into too much detail, but this basically just models out across the span of 12 months, you improving these different numbers, improving, for example, your sales reps closing percentage, and we work with your sales team in order to do that and to improve that closing percentage by the creation of content, different follow-up sequences, the connected to meetings accepted, meaning that of the CEOs that connected, how do we raise that over time, and influence all of these numbers. So this is sort of the mapping over a year of a realistic scenario of you creating in total revenue for the next 12 months, $6.9 million from this process. And that's by eventually just having 2 reps installed working this process for 2 of your current sales reps. 2 virtual assistants that are working their profiles. And in total value, we're talking about almost $39 million in total value created. So I know that these numbers are sort of, I don't have time to go into the detail of all of these numbers, but maybe I'll make a specific video breaking down all the steps and processes and stages, okay? So that's pretty much that. So problems that I want to talk about. And again, apologize for the dog barking in the background, any noise that you might hear. Those are the sounds of Tulum, Mexico. I'm living and working remotely from here right now. So we've got a little bit of noise here, but we're gonna move through it. So in terms of social selling, again, the biggest consequences and the biggest problems that many VP of sales, CMOs, CEOs have when they're trying to implement this process is that they miss steps and stages along the way. They don't really have a clearly defined strategy. They have a tactic and they're trying to piece it together and glue it together with other tactics. And the math pretty quickly falls apart if you don't really understand what you're doing, if you're not measuring each stage along the way. Because weak execution sort of breaks all the numbers within this process. So an example of what typically goes wrong is profile copy, right? So you're not changing the copy on the individual sales reps profiles that are trying to do social selling. And what this does is it makes it very hard to get connection requests and get meetings, and that throws off the entire number. The next thing is that you might be trying to give this to your current team, right? If you have a sales rep on staff and your on target earnings for that sales rep is $500,000 to $1 million, if you wanted them to produce $500,000 to $1 million, you can't waste 2 to 3 hours of their day going on LinkedIn and just pressing buttons, adding, copying, pasting messages to customize a little bit for the CEOs that they're trying to connect with, posting content on a regular basis. This is something that if you want high performing sales reps, they can't be doing this process themselves because it's a lot to add to the plate of a high performing rep. Expertise is another problem. So you need someone that is a master in terms of verbal communication and persuasion to create content and systems that will be appealing to the CEO of, let's say, a manufacturing company, to help them to understand how investing in cybersecurity is going to be a positive thing for their organization, right? And most people can't do that. So you're looking for a sort of needle in a haystack in order to be able to create the content and the value. That's really the leverage point in order to execute this system. So all in all, if you have one missing link within this system, the numbers fall apart. You're not talking about a $200 to $400 cost per acquisition. You're talking about a $2,000 to $4,000 cost per acquisition. And that's just one link. And then if you add multiple missing pieces, we're talking about completely destroying the economics of this system. Okay, so there's a multiple different things. I won't go into all of them. But this chart sort of tries to help you to understand the differences in economics of mediocre execution of social selling versus the original expectation of the chart that I showed you. So we're talking about literally the difference is in order of magnitude higher. So the total value created in this chart was $5.9 million, and this one was $39.9 million. And that's just differences, small differences in terms of connection requests accepted percentage, connections to meetings accepted percentage, your sales reps closing percentage, the deal size, the deal length, just small levers that over time cumulatively create dramatically different results. Okay? So if you have any questions about this process, what I want you to do is reach out to me directly via LinkedIn. That's where I'm most responsive. And what this really is about is I am looking for the right partner, MSSPs, to help set up and implement this process for their business. Social selling and this process that I've created is really, really cutting edge. There are very few MSSPs that are implementing this. So this space in social selling, in order to create new client growth and new revenue, is really just wide open. I'm looking for the right people who have the right mindset and are willing to put the right resources behind this process in order to execute upon the numbers that we just mentioned earlier. Okay? I am removing the risk as well. So I want to make sure that this is a no-brainer. So I get paid upon basically performance. So there's a low flat fee in terms of setup of this system, and then everything else is performance. So we're not talking about a high monthly retainer or any monthly retainer at all. This is a strictly performance basis in which we operate upon. And this is just one of the systems that we can set up for you. So the social selling system that we've set up is about establishing a level of cash flow. And then once you have, let's say, at least $20,000, $30,000 in new monthly recurring revenue from clients that we've generated, we take a portion of that and invest that into a paid advertising social selling system that we've created that allows you to scale up and grow even faster, even further with great numbers as well. Okay, so my name is Robert. I'm from Software Sensei, and I'm looking forward to helping your MSSP smash your growth goals in 2023 and beyond. All right, so reach out to me if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.